for a little less than 50 people is what I heard, right? So maybe we just give folks a couple more minutes before we send them off to do the first activity, so that way we're not scrambling later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to folks who are joining. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon.
For those that are just joining us, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat your name, what organization you work with, and where you're coming from, what city and state. Or if you're coming from another country, what country? I know that in the past we've had international visitors to our conference.
Roles too. We're definitely interested in what your roles are. Are you a community school director? Are you a school leader? Are you a district leader? We definitely our work's very adaptive. So if we get a house full of community school directors, we're going to spin our work very, very much quickly to that orientation. So we want to know who's in the house.
Yeah.
Okay, some pride there for Flint. Definitely some pride there. All caps and a lot of exclamation points. All right, Flint's in the house.
I love it. I also see some people from a workshop I did earlier today with Ron, and we had some special guests. So welcome back. Thank you for joining us, and for all those newcomers, thank you for being a part of this workshop that we're going to engage in.
B-More's in the house, New Mexico.
Awesome.
Grand Rapids, Michigan. Got Orlando, Florida. We got Buffalo, New York in the house. Okay. Digging out from some snow.
and there's going to be more snow, possibly. So get your shovels ready.
Boston's connecting in the house here. Boston's making a connection here.
Well, hopefully we'll make a bunch of connections today, and hopefully, this is just a starting of building relationships for future community schoolwork. So I'm excited about this.
Okay, I've got the Shy in the house.
Awesome. I see we have an instructor, a teacher. That's awesome. We love to see a bunch of different roles represented whenever we present. So I'm glad we have a bunch of different people here in our conference and in our workshop. I'm looking forward to this work that we're about to engage in. Oops.
All right. Shall we Nampa, Idaho in the house. Okay, welcome. We still have some people come trickling in. I know we said, how do we want to do? We want to kick off?
Yeah.
And so we'll send them to, if they join after we do breakout rooms, we'll just send them into breakout rooms. Is that doable?
We could just send them into breakout rooms later on as they trickle in. Correct, Mo? I'm sorry, Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Awesome.
Gotcha.
Perfect. So guys, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I know this is the last session of today, and you had a bunch of different workshops to choose from, but I thank you for choosing us, and I hope that this will be helpful and informative, and we have the opportunity to learn some new strategies and best practices. So you know that we have 4 different aspects of our work that we're focusing on, and in this one we're going to talk about commitment. And the way we define it is that all partners use a community school as a long-term strategy. It's not a program. And sustainability planning activities are employed from the start. We are looking at 4 main aspects to think about commitment: shared vision and results framework, building public will and participation, evaluation of capacity building, and strategic financing. I just want to go over some objectives, some key learning items for today, and then we're going to go into a fun icebreaker that Mr. Farid would guide us through. So we're going to focus on 3 main things today. So we're going to explore 4 of 9 leadership styles. And the reason why we're focusing on these 4 is because we feel like these are the most prevalent to our work. But there are 9 leadership styles. And we'll share the resource later on in the slide, and it's also be available in Hub. So if you guys want to refer back to that. We're going to do a small case study. So it's going to be short, but we're going to focus on 3 main aspects of our work: our equity and culturally responsive work, our restorative work, and our response to a current situation. We're going to look at what steps we both played as a principal and as a CSD, and then looking at which leadership style you think would be best in each situation, and how it strengthened our principal and CSD relationship. And along the way, we're going to highlight how we are building your toolkit. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Farid. It's going to guide us through our icebreaker.
Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here with us. So, hopefully our work today is going to be informative, give you some takeaway strategies, and be a little entertaining as well. And one of the ways that we want to enter into that work is to build a little community with each other. So we are going to engage in a little activity. I'm going to send you into some breakout rooms, and you're going to conduct a scavenger hunt. And the rules of the scavenger hunt are such. When you open up the document, if you click, is the document going in the chat yet? I don't know. The technical pieces escape me. That's not my strength.
I'm going to put in the chat right now.
Gotcha. So the document is going to go in the chat. When you click on the document, you're going to see the rules of the game that we're about to play. But I'm going to explain it real quick. Then I'm going to send you off to do it. You are going to engage in scavenger hunt with your teammates, finding an item that starts with every letter of the alphabet. So you're going to find an item that starts with A and an item that starts with B, right? And it is a point system. So you will see right there the ways to win. There's 2 ways. If your team finds an item that starts with you are actually able to find an item for each of the letters, you will leave your breakout room and come back to the main room, and that's when we'll call it, right? If we do not, we're not allowed access to the document. So if you're seeing in the chat, we need to change the access. If we go to the time limit, then we're going to add up the points, right? But it usually people are able to find. So be creative. I'm not giving any more rules than that. One rule I'm going to give: a picture book. If you have a small child, because I have one. If you have a small child and you have a picture book that has A through Z as something for each of them, that cannot count. That can only go for 1 letter, right? So we thought about that one because, like I said, I have a few of those books laying around, and so I can win this game quick. You cannot use a picture book with pictures of things from A through Z. That cannot be an automatic winner. You can only use that for 1 letter. And the second rule is you have to be able to show me the item when we come back to the big room. So you can't say that you have, koala bear for K and you don't actually have a koala bear. You got to be able to show it to me. All right. So we're going to send you up to the breakout rooms. Have fun with it. People have different strategies. They divide up the letters or they run around. Like, cool. And if your team finds something with all the letters, when you hit the little leave at the bottom, it's going to say leave the meeting or leave this breakout room. Hit leave the breakout room and you will join us in the main room and we will call the game and announce the winners. All right. Any clarifying questions?
I just want to add that remember your group number, just in case we have multiple people that kind of that trickle back, that when we know which group came back first. And everyone should have access to it. Please let me know if you don't, but I gave access to everyone would be able to view the document, and it's in the chat if you guys are looking for it, and if you guys have any questions.
This is a fun thing. Have fun with it. Connect. Build a little community. All right, ready? We're gonna send them off. How many people in a room are we putting?
We have between we have around 5 per room.
Good. Yep, that's good.
That's great. You guys have fun. When we did it, we had a ball. So you guys have fun, strategize, and we'll see you back in a few.
All right, everyone. Have fun.
First, group 2.
Yep. Group 2.
Group 2 is first. Okay. All right. So let's see what Group 2 has. So we're bringing everyone, closing the breakout rooms. Let's bring everybody back. We're gonna spot check Group 2.
To see if hopefully everyone had fun, regardless of who wins and who didn't win. I hope you guys had a good time.
I saw smiles. I saw a lot of people smiling. I saw some people running around. Yep. So I think they had a good time. We made some people get up at the end of the day, get up out of their chairs and find stuff, and then we did all right. All right, we have everybody back?
Lisa.
Yeah.
Group 2. You're saying you found an item for every letter. Show me what you have for the letter Q. What do you got for the letter Q? Somebody from Group 2, show me. Hold it up to the camera, unmute yourself. What do you got for the letter Q?
Who had Q?
Who got Q?
Did we do Q?
I know Q was the letter. Okay, hold on.
Who got
Q?
Was it?
Who got the Q?
It's the Q on the wall. Was that?
Yeah,
it's the Q on the wall.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Okay. And show me what you got for the letter X. What you got for the letter X?
I didn't have X.
Who got X?
Did you have X, Renee? It wasn't mine.
Oh, X. Yep. X was the book.
Oh, nice. Black History Month too. Nice. Okay. Got it. Ooh, careful, boo-boo. All right. Okay. Got X. Okay. And the grand prize. What do you got for Z? What do you got for Z?
Zipper. Zipper.
Zipper. Okay. There you go. So sounds good. So Group 2, we're gonna name you the winners here. Good job. I hope everybody had a little bit of fun. I'm sorry we can't provide you with some real prizes this time around, but you know, we're just trying to build some community, and I'm glad that you all engaged and you found a little energy at the end of the day, because we want you to be engaged with us, and we're going to try and keep it entertaining and informative at the same time. Hopefully we're all going to learn something together. So thank you all for engaging in that. Let's jump right into our thing. Let's do what we came to do.
I'm sorry, give me just one moment. You love this Zoom world. There we go.
Who was stuck with the cat head yesterday? I don't know if any of y'all saw that. I was trying to put that filter on so I could do this presentation with a cat head on, but I can't even figure out how we did that. So better than, you know, not being able to share your screen for a moment is definitely not as bad as doing a trial with the cat head on. So.
Is there a particular one you were looking to do?
All right. If I had found any of them, I think would have been
nice.
It would have been entertaining. Any type of, you know, cat emoji over my face while we're doing this would have been entertaining.
I'm not sure how that would have shown up in the recording. I'm not sure if that would have been the best video to upload to our hub, but it definitely would have been entertaining. So thank you for leading us through that icebreaker. I know when we did it last week, it was a lot of fun. We definitely had a good time. There was a lot of laughs, a lot of movement going on, a little bit of a competitiveness happened as well, but all in good spirit, and we had a great time. So we're going to shift our conversation a little bit to talking about leadership styles. And I mentioned at the very beginning that there are 4 leadership styles, but we wanted to highlight these 4 because we felt like these were the most important leadership styles, specifically with our working with youth, working with other adults, and, you know, working in multiple organizations. So the 4 leadership styles I want to focus on today are transactional, charismatic, servant, and situational. Mr. Ferreira and I are going to take you through each of them and kind of go over some of the strengths and then some of either limitations or areas of improvement on each one. And then we're going to go through like a little exercise on like who we are, which leadership style we think best kind of fits us, and then go through some case studies. So first I want to talk about transactional. So when we think about a transactional leader, it is someone who uses reward and consequence system to motivate employees to achieve success and discourage them from failure. Looking specifically at some of the strengths, so we see someone who's transactional maximizes productivity because they're really focused on getting the job done. So they're the kind of people that will make sure that their employees are maximizing their production. They also have a clear goal and chain of command. So it's very clear who's in charge. They know that there is a boss and that there are employees underneath. And so there's no questioning on who is in charge, on what is the chain of command and who you should turn to if you do have any questions. And there is a reward system. So it could be positive because if they are doing something that's good or that's beneficial, they will reap some reward because of it. Yet at the same time, it does limit creativity and innovation. So you think about someone who's transactional, who's just worried about the production side of things. They're not worried about trying to be creative, trying to be innovative, trying to do new things, trying to find a new way of resolving issues or conflict or achieving goals. They're just worried about producing. They're also really focused on consequences, which leads them to be not empathetic. So you think about somebody who, if you don't produce what you're supposed to produce in a certain amount of time, they're going to try to penalize you for that. And they're not going to really be worried about why it's not happening. They're not going to try to build that relationship with you, that rapport, to try to leverage that to try to get things done. They're just going to focus on what needs to happen, consequences for not doing it, and they're not really empathetic.
We're looking at as a charismatic leader. And charismatic leader in this situation is defined as a visionary who's good at communicating and sometimes convinces people, sometimes motivates people through the relationships and the likability and the energy that they present. Some of the strengths of a charismatic leader, they share identity with folks, right? So because they develop relationships, they share identity. Usually the charismatic leader is a risk taker, right? Thinks differently from the norm and isn't afraid to go against the grain a little bit. And usually the charismatic leader is emotionally intelligent, right? Somebody who is reading the situation and is positive and trying to connect with people and connect people with each other. Some of the pitfalls that may come from being a charismatic leader include focused on their own vision because they tend to be the center of attention a lot. Sometimes there's a lack of autonomy, and sometimes breaking the rules gets you in trouble. So those are some of the pitfalls of being a charismatic leader.
Okay. So we've gone through two leadership styles. So we've gone through charismatic and transactional. Now we're on to our third one, which is servant. So a servant leader shares power and decision-making with their subordinates and often direct the organization based on the interests of the team. So looking at a servant leadership, they are really focused on looking at things from a different lens. Perspective taking is really important to them. And they make decisions that benefits all the people around them, benefits the organization. They're not just focused on their self and whatever goals they want to accomplish. And in order to do that, they know they have to promote growth. So they're really big on people learning from their mistakes, trying to do better, trying to do new things, and understanding where their staff members are at to help them grow and promote them. But at the same time, decisions take longer because a lot of this work takes time. And that's why decisions take longer. And part of that is because there's increased professional development that is needed. If we think back to this idea that a servant leader likes to promote growth, in order to grow the employees, they have to continuously train them. But it might also look as a support role because servants are trying to do things that benefits everybody. They sometimes can take on way too much, too many responsibilities. And it's not always easy to differentiate between who is the leader, who's in charge, and who are the support staff in the role.
going to talk about today is the situational leader. And this is a person who can implement a variety of styles in the moment that they find a certain style is needed. Some of the strengths, there's a level of flexibility, a level of awareness of the situation you're in, and different stages of development are needed to be a situational leader. Some of the pitfalls, it's usually a short-term thing, right? It's usually about solving a problem in the moment, and it usually requires a specific set of skills. And sometimes it creates a dependency because you start looking to a certain subset of people or a person to handle certain things because they're good in that situation.
So we've gone through the 4 leadership styles that you want to focus on. So we've done transactional, we've done charismatic, servant, and we just did situational. Now I kind of want to go through who we are within each leadership and kind of some of the highlights that we have given our leadership style.
So this is me. My name is Hisham Farid. I'm the principal of Paul L. Dunbar Middle School in my 6th year. And I am identifying as a charismatic leader with a bit of situational. And these are the reasons why I'm listing myself as that. Vision is very important to me. I think that I lead all of the work through vision. You can't know where you're going if you haven't visualized it and you have like an idea of where you're going. I think that the people that I work with are my most valuable resource. So I put all my efforts towards building relationships with people so that they can work under that vision. I try to be flexible and understanding of what's happening long-term and short-term for people and the situations that we're facing, because I find that being rigid with a plan sometimes doesn't allow you to pivot when it absolutely is necessary. And yes, I can be perceived as a rule breaker. I don't know who added that arrogant thing. That Miss Mejia typed that in after I approved the PowerPoint. But rule breaker, yes, there have been plenty of times in my 6 years as a principal where I felt like we need to do something different from what's being asked of us. And if I'm not willing to step up to the forefront and be the person who breaks that rule or bends it or, kind of misinterprets it on purpose, we might not be able to take a step forward in the direction that I think we need to go. And that's because I'm not afraid to take the risk sometimes and try some new things. And I put a lot of work into trying those new things. It's not something I don't think out. It's calculated, but it's necessary sometimes. And I pride myself on it, even though sometimes it can be a trip, right? I can turn into something with my superiors where they say like, why did you do that? You're not, but I sometimes I beg for forgiveness instead of ask for permission, right? That's sometimes the way I view this work.
As a disclaimer, the arrogant part was there when you approved it. Thank you very much. So I am a servant with a little bit of charismatic. So I very much appreciate and value diversity, and I like to have diverse lens around me. I like to look at the whole picture and how that impacts the greater good. I like to see people grow. I push them. Sometimes I push them even if they don't want me to push them. And they may feel as if like I'm making them do stuff that they don't want to do, but it's because I feel like they can do it and it will help with their growth and their development. And trying new things, I feel like that's the way you can learn and you grow. I mean, at least that's the way I learn and the way I grow and the way I've been able to develop. So I am really big on developing relationships as well. I will say that it wasn't always important to me, but I think one thing I've definitely learned in this community school director role is the importance of developing relationships, because through that, you can get so much work done. And I am a doer. Sometimes I do too much. And it can be like overwhelming or people can perceive it as like, I just want to do everything myself. And it's not necessarily that I don't believe or trust in other people. I'm just the kind of person that like, if something needs to get done, I'm going to do it. but I have to learn to sometimes just take a step back and let other people take the reins, or to learn from other people as well. So we've been talking a lot, and we've been sharing kind of who we are and what we're about. So now we want to hear from you. We want to know, which leadership style do you think best describes you? Let me pause this. So remember, we have transactional. They're really focused on this reward system, on just basically giving you orders and you fulfilling them. Charismatic is really big on having this vision and trying to get people on their side to carry out this vision. With servant, they're really big on like diversity and promotion and growth. And situational is really good at being able to understand what's going on in the moment and how to shift your skills and how to move your staff to get to deal with the current situation that's happening. So what I want to welcome all of you guys to do is to either take your phone out, or if you want to open up a tab on your computer, go to pollev.com/Meredy Mejia 957. It is on the screen. Oh, I see already have one person chiming in. And I want to see, who do we have on our workshop right now? Who we have? Some charismatic leaders. Do we have some servant leaders? I want to see what kind of mix we have going on right now. So I will put the timer on. And we'll see what we have. So A is transactional, B situational, C is for servant, and D is for charismatic. But it looks like the servant is winning right now. And we have some people who are situational.
You have a question in the chat. What if your leadership style does not really resonate with any of these?
If you feel like it doesn't resonate, that's definitely, if you can hold that, or maybe put a description of who you think you are in the chat, because maybe one of the other 5 styles might resonate more with that. But I would say for now, just for doing this activity, think about which one you feel like fits the best, or even maybe who you want to strive to become. But I can definitely share the resource that has the other leadership styles that maybe might define you better. Thank you for that question. Let me see. What was it? Okay, we'll make sure that we get Jose, is there a way to post the style bullets in the chat? I would try my best to do that, Jose. Let me see if I can do that. I may have to stop sharing to do that. I'm sorry, guys. I seem to have lost my my presentation. Apologize for that. There we go. I can't put it in the chat right now, but I can definitely put it in during our Q&A session. When I stop sharing, I could definitely put it in then. All right, the poll is about to close in about 5 seconds, and then we'll see what our results look like. All right, so this is pretty telling. We have about 56% of our participants will consider themselves a servant leader, and then about 37% consider themselves charismatic. And we have a couple that would name themselves situational. We don't have any transactional, which probably wouldn't be optimal considering the population that we work with, or working in a school. Probably wouldn't be the best leader to be. But that's nice to see that we have about a little over half of the people here are servants, and the other about a third of them are charismatic. So thank you for engaging in that poll. Farid, if you can do the toolkit check, and then we can go into our equity work.
So just, we want to, as we're going along, we want to just think about building your toolkit, right? You walk away and say you saw us speak and you got something out of it. So you should, at this point, have some kind of idea about 4 leadership styles. And I want to give a disclaimer that it's kind of sexy to say that you're the servant leader, right? But the reality is this is a continuum. And there is going to be a time when you need to be a transactional leader, right? There's sometimes a job needs to get done and a reward and a consequence system will get the job done. And so it is flowing in and out, right? And somebody put the word transformational in earlier, right? And these are like, no one is one style, right? And so like, we want to just get ourselves to think about who we are as leaders. And that's why we put it that way. So I'm glad that people are reflecting on it. But also reflect that like you may be going in and out of those positions and it's okay as a leader based on different things. And then thinking about the strengths and develop, what I'm saying is thinking about the strengths and development areas of each of those styles and the situation that you're faced with, where you may have to go as a leader to accomplish something, meet a goal, or make progress. And as we go on through the presentation, we'll stop intermittently to see if we've added something to our toolkit. And then at the end, we'll have some questions as well, see if we can add more to the toolkit.
I do want to check to see if there's any other questions in the chat about this before we move on. I know somebody wanted the description of each one, which I can share later on, but I wanted to see if there's anything else coming up in the chat.
And Nikki put them in the chat. She's putting
perfect. Thank you, Nikki. You're on top of it. I love it. Thank you. You know what it is when you're in Zoom and you're sharing, you're kind of limited on what you can do. So I appreciate the support in here to get that information out to you guys. So Nikki, is there anything bubbling up that we should know about before we move on?
No, right now it seems like everything is good.
Awesome.
I'll chime in if there is, though.
Thank you. All right. So the first thing we want to look at is our equity work. So throughout our years at Dunbar, and we're thinking about this kind of transformation that we've gone through, we've been really focusing on developing different aspects of our work, and equity is definitely one of them. And we wanted to make sure that we develop equity and culturally responsive classrooms. So we're not going to go into a deep dive as to exactly what it was that we did in our whole journey. What I want to focus on is kind of as a CSD and as a principal, what we did, how we kind of tag team in some aspects of our work, how we utilize different aspects of our leadership style to accomplish the task, and kind of how it helped us with our partnership.
So what did we do? As the school leader, and equity obviously is some buzzword that everybody's hearing, but this was something that for us is a belief system, right? Before it ever became a buzzword, thinking about who needs what and who's being marginalized in our conversations, what systems and structures we're unwittingly promoting that impact kids. We are in a school that is 100% students of color, right? Our entire population is Black and brown kids who live in, a lot of subsidized housing and things like that. And so we're thinking about the circumstances that they're in and what are we doing to perpetrate the problems, right? We always can claim that we're helping, but what are we doing to perpetrate the problems, and digging into that and then dismantling that, right? In our little ecosystem. And so equity is embedded in our school vision. It is part of everything that we do. It is not an initiative. It's the way we think. And so we had to do a lot of work around that. And that work revolves around mindset shifts, right? Us looking at ourselves and our biases and those type of things. So embedding it in the vision became the first step. We created an internal equity team, which I led. And that team's comprised of teachers, staff members. Ms. Mejia is on that team. And so we did some small group learning as a team, and then did some professional development with the entire staff. using that small group. And then we also, here in New York City, we have a Office of Equity and Access and a lot of initiatives citywide. And we actually became an incubator school for equity-based initiatives, particularly thinking about disproportionality and suspensions. We are not big on suspensions, but we also realized that it wasn't just about stopping suspensions, but what led up to it. Our language, talking about behaviors, right? So we started to refine that. Are we talking about disruption? No, we started changing it. Undesirable things. We started talking about our restorative practice and responses. So all of that stemmed from an equity-based vision for the school. Ms. Mejia, what did you do?
What did I do? So one of the things I did was that I kind of made myself be part of the equity team. So it had been going on for about a year before I joined, and there was this one day I was in the office and I asked, I was like, I want to be part of the equity team. Like, why don't I a part of this? And sometimes part of our work as a CSD, we or as a community school director, we kind of had to take the initiatives and be a part of things. It wasn't necessarily that he wanted to exclude me. He thought I was doing too much, and he didn't want to ask me to be a part of yet another team. But it was something I was interested in, and I wanted to do the work around it. And I had to participate in professional development. Going back to this idea of being a servant leader, a lot of it is about growing and developing. It takes time, and part of that is being a part of or even creating some professional development. And through some of this professional development, I ended up leading some of the book clubs. So one thing that we did in our school was that we had some culturally responsive and equity-based book clubs where we read a book. We read a couple of chapters a week, and then we would have a discussion around it. And they would have a facilitator who would kind of lead the conversation and go over some key concepts. But it really helped in helping frame a lot of the equity work that we do. And it brought me closer to a lot of the staff members as well, because we were collaborating together, doing this work together, being on the same page and speaking the same language. And it was really helpful in that respect. And then looking at kind of how it helped our partnership. So one of the things that really resonated with me was that I needed to learn to be more reflective and understand identity. And I know Farid wants to talk a little bit more about this identity piece, but I really want to highlight the idea of being reflective is really important with this work. I have to understand myself better. I have to understand how I position myself with other people. Be aware of my interactions, how I might be perceived. All of that is really, really important. And it really helped with our partnership, because I think going through this work of developing common language and going through this professional development, we have a better understanding of each other, both as leaders, as a principal, but also as people. Can you share a little bit more about the identity piece?
Yeah, so I mean, who we are is critical to how we work. And I don't find much separation between who I am as a person and who I am as a school leader, especially as I get up there in the years, right? So every year that I do this job, that divide shrinks. I am who I am in all capacities of what I do. And I'm not ashamed of that. But it's also important that we understand each other's identities, right? So how we work together, what we believe in, how we respond to situations. The more and more we engage in that type of conversation openly, and challenge ideas. We're not challenging each other, we're challenging ideas. Our partnership grows and the reflection becomes easier. For example, like I said, I lead by vision. So sometimes I want things, I push an idea and it's grandiose, and sometimes it sounds reckless, we're gonna do this, and I really come to the table with this and as a partner, Ms. Mejia is very detail oriented. And sometimes she has to say that it sounds amazing, but how do we actually do that? You did not think of a single step of how to do that. And we need to drill down to that. And knowing that allows me to continue to bring my vision, because I know that I have a partner who's going to help me actualize it by thinking about the details. But if I didn't know that about her, that might stall the process a little bit. And so, learning each other's identity is critical. And then as we become better with our own identities, allows us to be better with the identities of the people around us, our staff and our students.
And yes, Farid, and you touched on one other key thing that really helped about partnership, with this idea that we can have one vision even if we approach the work very differently. And Farid and I can have very different styles sometimes. We are all about our kids. We're all about making sure that they feel good when they're in the school, about being positive, about helping our kids succeed. But the way we approach the work it is very different. And I think going through this process of understanding ourselves better and have a better idea of our own identity and each other's identity and being reflective has helped us understand that we can have a common goal, but approach it differently. And that's okay. Being different doesn't mean something's wrong with that. He is a visionary. He's all about these ideas, and I'm very much about like, okay, now how are we going to make this happen? And sometimes you need that kind of tag team approach in order to be able to get things done. Sometimes you need the person who's going to have the ideas, who's going to like push the narrative, and then you need to have people who are going to really like think about how can we actualize it? How can it actually live within our organization, within our kids, within our school? So I want to take a quick poll with you guys. So I want to know from you, what leadership style do you think would be best? And you can do it in the context of like any equity work that you guys are kind of involved in or want to be a part of, or just looking at our own process. So we didn't share a leadership style because we wanted to get an idea from you guys. Which one do you feel will be the best one to utilize within the context of our equity work? So we're going to go back into our poll. And I want to see what you guys are thinking. So if you're going to go back to pollev.com/MeridyMejia957, the information is on the screen. So I see we have a situational. Awesome. Okay, we have one response. Let's keep the responses going. I'm really curious to see which leadership style that you think would be the best one to employ given the situation. All right, I see situational is still winning. And if we have any brave souls, I would love to be able to know why you chose that particular one.
The chat's also open for folks who want to share why they chose something.
Yeah, I want to name Latanya said a mix of servant and charismatic.
Yep, I see that.
And
Thank
sometimes
you
you're going to have to employ strengths from different leadership styles. As you can see, when we were thinking about who we were, I said I was servant with a mix of charismatic. There's charismatic aspects to who I am, and sometimes there's a need for me to be charismatic. But I tend to favor the servant leader. So I'm going to leave this open for a little bit longer, just so I want to make sure I get all the responses in.
Ron agrees with Latanya.
Right. So an overwhelmingly percent of people, 70% of the people think that situational leadership would be the best one to use given the situation. And 30% said servant. Nobody said charismatic and nobody said transactional. So I can't really see everyone, unfortunately, because, I'm sharing my screen. But is there anyone who maybe would like to just unmute themselves and share why they chose that particular leadership style? About Farid, you want to maybe get the ball rolling and see which one you would have chosen?
So this one's tough because this one is about mindsets. And so you're challenging, this is about conversations about race, conversations about classes, the conversations about your own personal beliefs, white privilege, a lot of things that cause discomfort. And so I think that this is one of those places where situational might be necessary because you're going to encounter a variety of people. And so how you're going to interact with different people matters. But I think that's how you get the ball rolling. And then I would say servant is how you make this work stick, right? Because I can't say that we're going to look at a set of marginalized kids a certain way and not be the person who looks at them that way first. And so I think that I kind of agree. I don't know if I would have the 70-30 split, but I kind of agree with the two choices up there that people voted for. Anybody want to share one, you know, can we get one person? Somebody want to share something about why they chose situational or servant? Chat as well. If somebody wants to write something in the chat.
I can share. So my thought process was the same. I feel like definitely, well, I'm just thinking about my school and the people I work with and the different community partners I interact with, as well as parents. And you do have to switch up the way you interact with different people in order to in place and set up the systems that you want to be embedded within your school. So like one example is, you know, sometimes you do have to use like your charismatic leadership or charismatic like leadership role in order to draw in community partners, right? So that would be part of the situational, right? Trying to implement different leadership styles in order to best fit the situation and the environment you're in. But at the same time, as what was mentioned is you do want to use like servant leadership role in order when you're collaboratively working with, you know, staff and students, right? So you bring in that different leadership type and modify that in order to best fit the needs during that. So I think that's why I chose situational, just thinking about like what I do day on day and interact with our different stakeholders.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Nora, for sharing. I really appreciate it. And I absolutely agree. I would have gone in the situational route as well, just because it is a really complex topic and there's so many different moving pieces and you kind of have to juggle the different leadership styles, and it's going to employ different styles depending on kind of what space you're in, what stage you're in, and who you are engaging in. So looking at our next situation, our next case study. Looking at being restorative. So it's ensure that our PBIS and MTSS employ restorative practices. And just to give you some jargon, PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. And MTSS is multi-tier system of support. So that's basically about being able to have different levels of interventions in your school and using data, both quantitative data, qualitative data, anecdotal information to assign interventions to students and kind of track their progress and create goals for them. But how do we make sure that we remain restorative when looking at these aspects of our work?
So what did we do? From my end as the principal, when we put an MTSS team and a PBIS team into play, I had to get behind it. And so somebody's putting in the chat that we could just respond to them in the chat. But again, what it stands for is Positive Behavior Intervention System, right? Interventions and supports, and MTSS is multi-tiered system of supports. And so they're about providing kids with what they need, as opposed from a asset-based ideology, as opposed to consequences for their deficits, right? And that's all tied back to our vision of looking at kids positively. So I had to throw my backing behind that, right? So Ms. Mejia leads that work, and she'll talk about it when we get to what she does. But I had to be there, right? The principal's voice and presence is critical to initiatives sticking. And so I was at every MTSS and PBIS team meeting. I'm a member of those teams, not because I lead the teams, but because I'm a member and I engage in the work. and I want everybody to know how valuable those pieces are to me. And then as I visit classrooms around the school and I talk to teachers and I talk to kids, I promote that work so that everybody knows that I'm constantly thinking about that work and it's valuable to me. And that is sometimes critical for some people to like catch on to the pieces of work, right? And so that's a piece of, I would say some of that is a piece of transactional work, right? Like there's a need to know that the principal is involved in this work. And so that's not a place I go to often, but some folks need to know that the reward here is that you're doing an initiative that the principal is saying we need to do. I've always provided ideas around restorative, right? I'm not here for punishing kids. I do not see school as a place to control kids. I do not see school as a place to discipline students. I am completely the opposite of that. I'm there to provide support for kids. I'm there to try and help them learn how to get through situations. And so being restorative is critical for me. I want to correct things. I don't want to punish things. And then creating a space for people to reimagine and question and push back on this, because it's a shift, right? People who are like, oh yeah, we love the kids, and then the kid curses in your room or throws something in your room, and now you're saying, what are you going to do with this kid? We're going to do the same thing we've been doing when they did it in another room. We're going to need to correct this behavior, and these are the methods that we have: counseling, restorative circles, whatever those pieces are, to make sure that students are learning, right? Misbehavior is a mistake in their learning, and we can correct that. Ms. Mia, what did you do?
Did a couple of things. So one, yes, you created a space where I can do some of the work that I needed to get done. And I wouldn't have been able to achieve this if, as a principal, Farid wouldn't have set the stage to allow this work to happen. And I want to go back to this idea that we were talking about earlier about, like, sometimes you're going to have different approaches, but to meet the same goal. And this is one of those situations where this is exactly what happened. You know, what he had to do was set the stage for allow this work to happen and kind of let me do some of this work that needed to get done. So some of the work that I did was that, you know, I created this MTSS team, this multi-tiered system of support. And it's this idea of looking at students from multiple perspectives or multiple points of view, and making sure that we are aligning our interventions, our supports with what students really need. We were using a lot of like anecdotal data and a lot of historical data, and we really needed to start quantifying some of this work. So we would say the students misbehaving, but what do you mean by that? What kind of behaviors are you seeing in the classroom? What kind of professional development can we give you in the classroom to help you with and support you with this behavior that you're seeing? And then how can we now talk to the student to help them and support them with this behavior? So some of the work that we did. And we did that through, like I said, professional development, our restorative practices. We have what we call a section sheet attendance tracker. That's what we actually track student behavior. And this is not a punitive thing. It's not at the end of the day, we're going to add it up and see how many strikes you received and then call your household. It's about, okay, we're seeing that you're having some challenges listening in class. What support can we give you? Who can you talk to? Who can counsel you and help you to develop that skill so that you don't continue to have this situation in the classroom? We also did a screener for SEL, which stands for social and emotional learning, because we wanted to make sure that we are filling in any skills gaps that we're seeing. So if we're seeing a student needs to focus on social and emotional development, what we're going to do is give them support in social and emotional development. And this is where a lot of our restorative practices are based upon, is this idea that we need to get to know our students and we need to give them the space to develop those skills and not be punitive. Any questions coming up in the chat that I should be aware of before we jump into the next thing?
I'm on it. I'm looking at the chat.
Awesome. Love it. So kind of looking at how it helped our partnership.
So, you know, creating the space, one of the things that has always been a goal for me is, at the beginning of this journey, I had to create a team, right? And so becoming a principal, phase one for me had to do with making sure that the right folks are on my bus. right? Like, so some folks had to go and some folks had to join, had to come aboard. And after that, so like, here are the right people, here they are, you built this team. That team is not going to be productive if that team doesn't continue to grow. And so I had to put in play opportunities for team members, me included, to take the lead on things, and give the encouragement and the trust that the things they're bringing to the table are valuable to me, and not to take those things over, but to allow them to flourish in those spaces and work on it collaboratively. So instilling that confidence was important. I expect everybody who I've brought along in this journey to be a leader. I don't look at myself to be the leader standalone.
Before we go on to our next one, I want to be mindful of time. So I had another poll coming up, but instead, what I would like for you guys to do is, while I give my next portion, if you guys want to just put in the chat really quickly, which leadership style do you think would be best for this that we just spoke about, this idea of like making sure that all aspects of our work are restorative, and some of the shift that had to take place, some of the teams that had to be created, some of that work that they did to ensure that we had restorative practices in all aspects of our work. If you just want to put that in the chat, and then I will go over the second thing. So you had to be okay with taking the back seat or stepping up. Now, this one was really important, and I think about, Farid's style. He has this great way of allowing people to kind of become leaders, and that's really important. And he's okay with taking a step back and being a part of the team, where he had to be the person that was taking some direction from me. I had to be the one leading the meeting and asking him to do certain things, and following up with, did you see this kid that you were supposed to see? Did you do your progress monitoring, and kind of doing that level of work? And that can be challenging sometimes when you are the leader, when you are used to being the person that everyone kind of comes to you for that level of work. To have to step back and not be in that position can be challenging, but he was able to do it, and he did it so effortlessly. And that also shows the support that we were talking about earlier of elevating me to this space where I could lead that work. And he wasn't trying to, take over. He just allowed me to take the lead, and to be that person, and let people come to me to help lead this team. So that was really important. I'm not sure, Farid, if you want to add anything to that before we move on.
No, but I see a lot of people in the chat saying servant would be the thing that they go towards in this space. And, I agree with that. I think to make things restorative, you have to be a servant type of leader first. But again, you will probably find yourself going in and out of different spaces to get to that point. So, I would probably put servant as my response as well here.
Yeah, I agree. And if you think about this idea about serving, it's about growth. It's about promoting your staff and people around you. But this takes time. This is not something that you can do in one day, 1 year, and 1 month. Like, this has been a journey for us. We've been a community school for 6 years, and we've been in a principal CSD relationship for 6 years at this point. So this took time. And so being a servant leader in this particular aspect of our work, it will take time, but it's worth it. But it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And I do want to stress that point, because sometimes you can feel a little bit defeated if you don't see the results right away. But in this type of work and a journey that we're going through, it's going to take some time. Okay, so we're going to skip over that, and we're going to do a quick toolkit check. So, Mr. Farid, can you lead us in a toolkit check to see what we've been doing so far?
So we talked about leadership styles. We've thought about the strengths and developmental areas of the leadership styles. We've thought about complementary leadership styles and how we're like picking and choosing. And now we've also thought about understanding your role, right? So like, what is your job in a certain place as a leader? And sometimes the leader, again, in this conversation we just had, sometimes the leader has to make others better or give others a space to do the things that they need to do. And that's part of the leadership style that you have to employ in that space. So understanding your role, we just added that. So step back and think about what is your role in this space.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to share our last one, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have anything that you've been dying to ask us, we're going to be able to give you the opportunity to do it in a couple of minutes. So the last situation is responding to current situation. And this is obviously pretty relevant to what we're going through right now. It's been almost a year since we've been feeling the effects of the pandemic of COVID-19. What we want to highlight is some of the work that we did around our supports, our services, and our mentoring in response to COVID-19.
So what did I do? I made sure that we utilized every available tool that we had. So any devices that we had were deployed to the community. Any learning that had to be done to like learn how to use platforms and things like that with kids. Okay, the doorbell rings. Miss Mejia, can you talk about what you're doing? This is what happens when you're doing Zoom in your house.
It is okay. I have a doorbell, a ring doorbell, so it rings like 5 times.
I'm presenting and she came and said the doorbell.
I get it. So talking about what we did, so what I did was that we helped create a support and mentoring system. So we gathered all of our support staff, whether they work for Children's Aid or they were part of the school staff. We brought them together and we created an outreach mentoring and support system where each class had a mentor assigned to that class, and they checked in on that student. They were in charge of helping make sure that they got a laptop if they needed it, they had any tech issues, if they had any food insecurities, they checked in with them to make sure everybody in their household was safe and healthy. If they needed any social and emotional support, any mental health support, we were able to bridge that gap for them as well. We did food and tech distribution. So we have made sure that we spent a lot of our money and out of our available funding in making sure that we closed any food insecurity gaps that they may have and any tech gaps that they may have. So unfortunately, a lot of our students did not have the technological needs to transition to remote learning. They didn't have a laptop, they didn't have Wi-Fi. A lot of our families live in shelters too, where they're not allowed, and I repeat that, they're not allowed to have cable. They're not allowed to have Wi-Fi. They're not allowed to have internet. So now we have 20 to 30% of our population that have no means of getting online. But we made sure that they did it. We got them hotspots. We got them laptops. We brought it to them if that's what they needed. And we facilitated getting iPads through the Department of Education for our students as well. We also reimagined our SEL activities. So we are big on doing events. We are big on activities. We're all about being fun and engaging, but we weren't in person anymore. So we had to adapt to now being remote, and we had to reimagine what that looks like. And so we had to use things like TikTok, which I don't like using TikTok. I'm not online. I don't do social media. I don't take pictures. I don't do any of that. So I was out there doing TikToks with these kids, to keep it fun and keep it engaging. And we did that for them. And we made sure, like I said before, that we had a lot of outreach to our parents. It's really easy to lose our families if we don't see them. If they come into our building, we got them. Like we have a captive audience. With them being remote, with them being involved in distance learning, it's so easy for some people to slip through the cracks. So we made sure that we contacted them through phone, through call, through text message. We have an online system called Kimvo that does automatic messaging for our families. It sends emails and it sends text messages. We made sure we used every single outlet that we could to make sure that our families felt supported, that they were engaged in the work that we're doing, and that we can help them with any needs. And, our family had a lot of needs, and making sure that we can support them through that. We also made sure that we were engaged in social media, although I'm not big on that. I know Principal Farid is really big on tweeting, on making sure he posts things on Instagram. we've been creating a Snapchat, you know, just to make sure that we're reaching our families and our kids in all aspects of our work. Farid, are you ready to jump in there?
So I think everything you said connects back to the last bullet on my side, prioritizing stakeholder well-being. And stakeholders like a fancy word, but it's about the people, right? I'm not in the camp that's worried about learning loss. I'm not in any of those camps. I want to make sure that the people who I'm connected to are doing okay. Everything else will follow if they're doing okay. So do they need to talk to somebody? I cannot promise you that every student in my school attends all their classes, but I promise you that we connect with every student daily. We're going to call you. Like, I didn't see you online. Somebody's calling you. My mentor is going to find you today and say, hey, you all right? Is there something going on? Do you need something from us? And sometimes we get a response. Everything's cool. I'm going to log on. And they still don't log on. And that's okay. I'm all right with that. I'm not there to fail them for that. I'm not there to punish them for that. I don't have a conversation with them about you're wasting your, like you're losing a year of school. None of that. It's a global pandemic. I just want to make sure you're okay. And once we ensure that that was our priority, everything else falls into place. We're learning how to be better teachers online. We're learning how to repurpose our resources, all of that on the fly. But the one thing that we are ensuring is that we are connecting with our people on a regular basis. And somebody asked about the mentors. One of our visions right away from the beginning since last March, and it carries over now, is some people's jobs changed. That's just a reality. You are the guidance counselor, but guess what? You don't have that many people coming knocking on your door and do. So guess what? It's time to own a subset of kids and be their mentor and their family's mentor and make phone calls to them daily and see if they're okay. And that relationship, when it started, it was us going to them. And now it's in a place where they're coming to us, right? We built that trust. You're connecting with that same person over and over. You know they have your best interest at heart. And now you can call them and say, hey, I can't log on. My kids, are they doing their work? Is this whatever? I'm struggling. I need, there's some kind of food issue. There's some kind of rent issue. There's some, cool. Then let us know, right? Because we built the trust. And in certain communities, that trust isn't there with the school, right? Because the school can be viewed as another municipality, like the court, like the police department, like housing, like any of the other municipalities who seem to be challenging for the community. We don't want that. I'm not one of them. I don't want to be viewed that way. And if the municipalities around me don't mind being viewed that way, that's cool. That's not how we're trying to get our job done. So prioritizing them was critical.
Then very quickly, we're just going to go through how it kind of strengthened our relationship. And then we're just going to turn it over to you guys because we want to hear from you and see what questions are coming up and see how we can best help you. So we had to be flexible and adapt. And, I was talking earlier about doing TikTok videos. That was me stepping outside of my comfort zone. That is not something I like to do. That is not who I am. Don't like social media. I don't like taking pictures of myself. I don't like doing videos, but it was what the kids were doing, and that's what we needed to do to kind of engage them. And honestly, we need to be funny and silly in our work to continue to build those relationships with our students. And I think we also had a greater sense of appreciation, and we thankfully we've been able to get through this pandemic without having lost each other. I think about like as a CSD, the principal partnership, like I know there were other people that unfortunately lost team members, lost staff members. And I think that's really helped us have a greater appreciation for each other. Sometimes we lose sight of things. We focus on like all these big picture items. And sometimes we just need to stop and like look at like, this is what we've been able to accomplish. I appreciate the fact that you're here. I appreciate the fact that you're safe and you're alive and you're here with us. And I think it's really re-solidified our relationship and this idea that like we're here together and we have we still have a lot of work to get done. But I appreciate the fact that he is with me along this journey, and that's really important. I'm not sure if you want to add anything for Red before I stop sharing and we turn it to our participants.
Just celebrating, I think it's important to seek out things to celebrate. this challenge. Again, it's not just about the pandemic or the social justice movement that we're living, living it through right now. And it just on a day-to-day basis, this works hard, right? If you're functioning in the community school model, then there's a reason why you're seeking that model, because where you work is challenging. And the long-term goals, you have them in mind, but I always encourage folks to seek and celebrate small victories because it keeps you going. And at the same time, check in and acknowledge the frustrations that exist and see what you can do. Sometimes it's just the need to voice them. Sometimes it's a time to come together and put our heads together and say, all right, here's some things that we can try. So celebrate the small things. I put in the chat, and I think this is not our first go at this, right? So we've done this workshop a few times and in different iterations. And one of the things that's been really successful for us in this workshop is to say, if there's any problems that folks are facing as they're implementing the community school model, to throw them out there and see if we can be a learning community together. Either people in the room can help respond, or we can give some input on how if we face that, or if we face that, how we would address it. So if folks have any type of questions, that's my favorite part. I'm kind of like Anstey through the PowerPoint. Like I just want to get through that. I want to like talk to the people and hear what's going on with you guys. And I know it's the end of the day. So, if there's some ideas there or like a question, go for it. And don't hesitate to ask that question. Like, yo, what do I do if my principal does not want to work with me? Because I like that question. I answer that question probably every workshop that I do around this work. So the floor is open to the community to ask us some questions. Go for it.
And I'm going to stop recording so you guys can feel free to be as